Welcome to the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Lace up those boots and sling on the pack for a romp through trails, short and long. With your host and Renaissance man, Doc. It's time to embrace the suck.
Welcome back to another week on the trail. I'm Doc, and this is the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Let's start off with a reminder. If you are enjoying the podcast, take just a minute and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're not enjoying the pod, well, just go ahead and keep that to yourself. All right, on to this week's content. I have a feeling some of our listeners might be a lot like me. So they sit down at the end of a day, flip on their smart TV, and take a cruise through hiking-related videos on YouTube to get inspiration and stay connected to the trail. Well, I was doing said activity recently, and I came across a real gem. One of those videos that feels like it could be featured on an adventure documentary on Amazon or Netflix. You know, the type of video that makes you feel inadequate about calling yourself a YouTuber. The video I'm talking about is To Measure a Mile, an outstanding film about a 2018 hike of the PCT. I suggest you pause the podcast right now to watch To Measure a Mile and then come back to the pod. Go ahead. I'll wait. All right. Welcome back. Now that you've seen that, it's my pleasure to welcome to the podcast the creator of To Measure a Mile, Chris Carter, and two members of his trail family, Bo and Eich. Welcome to the pod, guys.
Thanks, Doc. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Doc. Great to be on.
Pleasure to have you guys. You know, I have done a deep dive into your backgrounds. I'm not sure if you know this or not, but I've done some heavy research on the internet. I have reached out to your current employers and closest friends with a 30-item questionnaire, and I really feel like I know who you guys are. I feel like we're buds from a long time ago. So very interesting information that I uncovered about you guys.
I don't know if that's a good thing, Doc.
Hey, let's first, before we get too far, let's have you each introduce yourself with your name and your trail name, just so folks can recognize the voices and know who's talking at what time. So we'll start with Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
My name's Chris Carter, and I go by Rad on trail.
And you want to tell us the story of how you came by the trail name of Rad?
Good way to start off the podcast, I guess.
Absolutely.
It's definitely not something I talked about a lot in the film, but I got a butt tattoo. Says Rad. So does Bo, actually. I feel like I got to throw him in on this. But we got it in college together. And there was a water sports.
Wait, hang on.
We got to back up a little.
Got to unpack this real quick. Matching butt tattoos. Is that, am I hearing that correctly?
That's correct. I will say it's not just us two. It's a group of people.
Okay.
So, but yes, that's something that we share. There's a spur of the moment. Very spur of the moment. Stick and poke in the basement type of deal. Yeah. But
I'm actually included on that as well. I don't have Rad, but I have the second law of thermodynamics tattooed on my butt by stick and poke in the basement. So it kind of characterizes us and gives you a little bit of background as to who we are, I hope.
Ike, the second law of thermodynamics. For some reason, my deep dive into your background and my watching of the video at least, 3 times, I did not pick up on, I had no idea that could be a possibility.
Well, yeah, I went to the University of Missouri, and I think about 500 students now know I have that on my butt because the teacher of thermodynamics shared that with everyone who came after me at the university. So yeah, another fun
Which
fact.
leads to the question, how does the teacher of thermodynamics know that you have that tattooed on your butt?
Well, he said, hey, classes of the second law of thermodynamics, writes it up on the board and says, hey, if you remember one thing from my class, I want it to be this. And if anyone gets it tattooed on themselves, you're getting an A in my class. I turned to my friend, I said, we're getting tats tonight. We called up a pledge from the fraternity who got a tattoo gun. Ass tats in our basement tonight. Let's go. So we did it. And then I went to the teacher's office the next day, was going to show him. He wouldn't let me. Probably a good idea. Then refused to give me any extra credit or points in the class. So at the end of the semester, I took a picture of my Heine cheeks and stapled it to the final just to prove that I actually did it. And now he tells every class that.
Did he follow through? Did he give you the A?
No, he did not.
Oh,
That's the worst part about it. So it's still there for life. I made a lifelong commitment to him and his class, and he didn't give me anything. But
that is a travesty.
Yes. So we digress, but there you go.
For all you educators out there, let that be a lesson to you. What comes out of your mouth has specific and direct consequences upon your students. If you're going to say something like that, you got to follow through. Are you kidding me?
It's brutal, man.
Yeah.
Sorry. Shed a couple tears of that.
Anyway, sorry, Chris. I'm sorry to steal your thunder there. Please.
You know what, man? My story pales in comparison, but for sure. But
the rad tattoo is not so impressive anymore after
Yeah.
hearing from Eich.
definitely been overshadowed by that. That's for sure.
I'm sorry.
We the way I got it, there's one of the water sources in the desert section is a place called Deep Creek Hot Springs, and it's kind of a nudist place. Everyone likes to get naked while they're there, and I was not really in the mood to get naked when I got there, but there was a lot of peer pressure from those around me, and Ike was saying, well, he just doesn't want to show off his rad tat, and so started getting called rad after that, and it just kind of stuck.
And I have to ask, what was the inspiration behind rad that led to a group of you getting that tattooed?
I think we just all said it a lot. We're all kind of climbers and dirtbags, and it's just something that we threw out to each other. And honestly, we weren't that creative that night. We just still wanted to get a tattoo, so that's what happens.
Nice. How about you, Bo?
My name's Bo. Blister Buckets is the trail name.
Mm-hmm.
I earned that one by having blisters in any place surrounding anywhere of my toes, anyone.
Whole toe.
And we got to this section where there's a water cache in the desert, and there are a bunch of these buckets of water. What were they? Jugs of water. And Rad and Bugs cut them in half, filled some water, and we were trying to soak my feet to get them a little bit better. And then they called me Blister Buckets.
You forget, bro. The best part is he started shuffling around camp wearing these things like shoes.
If you've ever seen a clown at the circus with the big old gigantic red shoes, that's what Bo looked like clonking around camp.
I was trying to avoid being eaten by all the ants that were on the ground, and Chris was just eating them off of the ground. But I couldn't get used to that, so I just had to walk around, I guess.
Some of the creature comforts of the trail. Very nice. Yeah, and I remember that scene vividly from the video. It was the picture of your toes, not a pretty picture, and I remember the feet going into the jugs. So very nice. All right, Bo. How about I'm sorry, Bo. Ike. How about you? What's your trail name and how'd you come by it?
Trail name's Bugs. Most people think Bugs Bunny at first. It has nothing to do with that, actually. So we were first 100 miles or so, and I'm someone who hates bugs. I'm quite a sissy when it comes to spiders and beetles and crawlies. I absolutely am just petrified of them. So multiple times I would go put my socks on in the morning, and all of a sudden all these bugs, just bugs, would come crawling out of my socks, like multiple times. And I would just start screaming like a little girl. I think they crawled out of my sleeping bag one time, and Brad and Blister Buckets would always make fun of me. So one guy who was sitting around, like overhearing our conversation, me screaming about bugs, just said, "Hey, why don't you start calling that guy Bugs? He's running around screaming like a little girl." And they both just looked at me and said, "Well, you're Bugs now." So, that's how we got that one.
Deep thoughts from the trail. Some guy saying, "Hey, call that guy Bugs."
Yeah.
Nice. Hey, have you guys listened to the podcast before? Just curious.
A little bit, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I've not gotten a chance to be honest with you.
Okay. So I only asked because we have a regular feature on the podcast that I want to make sure that you're aware of. It's called the Pro Tip Insight of the Week. And so what that is at the end of the episode, I'm going to turn to you guys and I'm going to ask you what insight can you share with our listeners that's going to make their next adventure that much more epic? All right. So it's usually something that kind of springs from the free flow of conversation that we're going to have during the episode. So we really can't plan for it. Just be on the lookout for it. Keep your ears open, and don't be surprised when I turn to you towards the end and ask you, each of you, for your pro tip insight of the week.
Awesome.
Sounds good. We're ready for it, Doc.
All right, very good. You all seem very sharp on your feet, so I don't have any concerns.
If Bo's trail name tells you anything as to what he's going to talk about at the very end, that may be a little bit of a foreshadowing.
Okay. Well, I was thinking more specifically about, the ass tattoo of the second law of thermodynamics. So. All right. Hey, another feature we've been doing this season is the must bring gear review. Here's how it works. If you were to let a stranger pack your bag with pretty much generic gear for a multi-day hike, what is the one specific piece of gear you would insist on being packed? And if you've got a particular brand for that specific piece of gear, even better. So we can go in any order you want, but I want to hear from each of you. What is your specific must-bring piece of gear?
Yeah, I put a lot of thought into that. And to be honest, one gear piece that I would not leave home without is a bottle of bleach. You got to have it. And I guess the brand is Clorox. Can't go without it, man.
Really?
Everyone makes fun of me. Yeah,
The bleach gang.
the bleach called the bleach gang, and you get a name after it too. Like if you start hiking with me enough, you're the bleach gang because
What do you do with bleach on the trail? I've never heard this before.
that's how I purified my water. And I gotta say, when everyone's sitting at the stream, pumping their water, squeezing it through their smart water bottle, and I come up and I just put a couple drops of bleach in, keep charging on, then they get pretty jealous. And pretty much everyone that I hiked with on the trail eventually got converted to the bleach gang at the end. So what you do is it's just 2 drops of bleach per liter of water, wait 30 minutes, and it's one of the best ways of purifying water that I've found. I've been doing it pretty much my whole life.
Wow, that almost borders on a pro tip. So you can't use that. You've used that one up. It's gone. And obviously it works. I mean, you didn't get sick, right?
I didn't get sick, but I will say I got a little bit of a different stomach than some people. I grew up in Kenya, East Africa. We, did a lot of water purification with bleach there. That's where I kind of learned how to do it. And but I also was exposed to a lot of crap that I might not have been exposed to here. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that without doing a little more research. But it has worked for me and my trail family, and it's what I did the entire trail. And what I continue to do. I've been doing it for most of my life. And so far, I think I still have a stomach lining. So far, I'm not sure.
Well, I have to tell you that in 70 plus episodes on the John Freakin' Muir Pod, this is the first time the word bleach has been used. So congratulations on that.
You know.
Rad.
Love that.
All right. Blister buckets. What do you got?
Wow. I would say bring a Chris Carter if you have one, but in the event that your friend can't get a hold of the Kenyan brand, I would recommend probably, this is what I always tend to travel with, and it's really not that valuable or important, but I really like it. It's a schmog scarf thing. It's like a little blanket but you can use it as a pillow. You can sleep on it. You can cover your head and get shade in it. You can use it as a loincloth and dance around a fire in it.
That is very true.
You can do all sorts of things in it. Most diverse piece of equipment that I've ever used, and I don't even know where I got it, but that goes with me on every trail.
Okay, you said schmog scarf. Yeah. How do you spell schmog?
Oh, buddy, here you go.
That is not a good one for a dyslexic. I'm gonna leave that.
I got you, Doc. You ready?
Yes.
SHEMAGH. Shemagh.
Shemagh.
So if you've seen the Navy SEALs, they got the cool looking thing around their neck. It's like a scarf for Navy SEALs.
Right.
One of those things. That's what a shemagh is.
Navy SEAL scarf.
I will say it's a very valuable piece of gear. One thing he left out also in the desert, you can soak it in water, throw it over your face during a siesta. It's like air conditioning. It's awesome. Throw it in like a Joshua tree as some shade. It's a very diverse piece of gear. Definitely wouldn't leave home without it.
All right. As soon as I hit the stop button tonight, I am going on Amazon and ordering myself a shemagh scarf.
Order one, man.
Very
That's
good.
Right. You all had it.
That's right. Rad, don't be disappointed that I didn't say bleach. I've got bleach in the house already. So
left out there.
Okay.
But it's got to be bleach that's not scented.
Oh, I tell you, that is a good pro tip. Do not get the scented bleach. It's bad for sure.
I did not know. Today is the first. Today I am today years old where I found out that there are 2 different types of bleach, scented and unscented.
You gotta watch out.
Very good. All right, Bugs, pressure's on you. What do you got?
So I had 2 thoughts. My first, I was going to go with the moleskin, but I feel like that's a little too generic. That's pretty obvious, you know. So I was going to add another thing to your shopping list actually for you tonight.
Okay.
If you've ever seen boa shorts,
Oh yes, dog! Yes, dog!
imagine booty shorts for a guy. They're running,
Okay.
they're running shorts, but you know it's
Okay.
more fun to call them booty shorts. So, but the brand name is Boa, BOA, Boa shorts. You have to buy a pair. I actually started the trail with a pair of, gosh, they're a little longer, kind of like more basketball shorty. And Chris whipped out his boa shorts. I mean, they're literally this long, and don't cover a lot.
For those
They're
listeners out there, he indicated about like 6 to 7 inches, right, with his fingers there. Okay.
I'd say 5.
Yeah, funny story on that. People actually called us the Scrote Squad because they were so short. So anyway, that's probably too much information. I'm sorry. But anyway, they're short shorts, but they're extremely freeing. That's why ultra runners, all runners wear them. I actually had a pair shipped to me on the trail because I wanted them so badly. And I wore them, I think, every day for like 40 or 50 days straight on the trail. I didn't even take them off. That's how much I love them. So that's my pro tip. Boa short. I have a nice pair of very comfortable shorts to walk the trail in that are very lightweight as well. Goes a long way.
Maybe after one of our breaks, you can show us a pair of boa shorts so if our
listeners, I got them in the back. I can model.
You don't have to wear them. You don't have to wear them. Just hold them up. So if our listeners on Spotify or Apple want to get a visual, they can tune into our YouTube channel and check out the video. So we'll see if Bugs will comply with that request. He's getting up right now.
Yeah, just stay off camera.
We could be in trouble. There they are.
There they are. This is them. Actually, also another reason to rep boa is that there's a lining in them, and the liner actually ripped out. And I messaged boa and said, hey, I was on the PCT, the liner ripped out. They sent me a new pair within like a week. So
wow,
100% go with boa.
That's nice. For any of our listeners out there who did not see that, and they grew up in the 80s like myself, those look like dolphin shorts.
Yes.
So if you're familiar with dolphin shorts, it's kind of along the same lines. All right. Very good. Do you guys know what dolphin shorts are? Probably no idea.
I can imagine.
Whoa. I looked it up on Google, and I see a lot of women wearing those. I don't know how I feel about that, Doc.
All right. Hey, let's back up a little bit, and I'd like to hear from each of you kind of your background and growing up and kind of the sports and hobbies that you were involved with as a kid and how you got involved in the whole backpacking cult, because that's what it is. It's people who decide that it's a good idea to go out for days upon days upon days with everything they need strapped to their back and living in the dirt. That's got to be a cult. So you want to take us through just kind of your background, where you grew up and what you're interested in and how you got involved.
Chris, why don't you start?
Yeah, I grew up in Kenya, East Africa. My parents are missionaries there, still are. So I moved from Africa to America to go to college. And growing up in Africa, I played a lot of sports, but I also was doing a lot of trail running and really getting into kind of endurance sports. I played rugby my whole life, but really had I think a deeper passion for ultra running and for kind of pushing my limits there. There was no really race opportunities while I was in Africa. And so when I came to the States, I kind of fell just as deep as I could into the ultra running community. I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee right now, which has an awesome ultra running community, and went to college here. And yeah, just really fell in love with that. And I think that kind of naturally led to backpacking and just kind of exploring long trails. I did a lot of backpacking in Africa and just grew a passion for the minimalist attitude of carrying everything on your back. And it just is it's a beautiful expression and celebration of how little we can live by. And when I was, I guess between my junior and senior year, I went out and hiked the John Muir Trail in 2017 with some good friends. And I just had no idea how beautiful America was until doing that. I mean, I was just absolutely blown away. As you know, Doc, just looks, I mean, just is, you know, the most beautiful 200-mile stretch that I've seen on Earth so far. And it's going to take a lot to top that. And my life was changed doing that trip. And I think that really instilled in me a passion to do the PCT and continue pursuing long trails as long as I have the body to do it.
Yeah, totally agree with your assessment there of the High Sierras and the John Muir Trail. That's why this podcast exists, because of my experience on that trail and my desire to stay in touch with similar-minded folks. So, quick question: our listeners are familiar with ultra running, because on this podcast we've had Gabe and Kevin, who fast packed the John Muir Trail. They did it in less than 6 days. And they met as ultra runners in long distance events like the Moab 240, which is a trail race where obviously you run 240 miles. And so ultra running, Rad, that whet your appetite because 26.2 miles was just not enough.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely enjoy the marathon distance, but I think there's something really special about the ultra marathon distance. It takes another level of commitment, both training and discipline and nutrition wise. And Bo actually knows this intimately now. He actually just did his first ultra marathon a couple months ago. Freaking crushed it. Wearing the hat from it right now, actually, baby. And it was just really cool to see him do that. But I think both of us have I think you get to this point where you just want to push yourself a little farther. And I personally love anything that feels like a journey, that feels like you are investing in it for a really long time. And so I have been very attracted to ultra running for that distance, because it does feel like this extra level of commitment. It takes a very long time to run the race. By the end of it, you're like, man, I just went through a lot. And I think that's what attracts me to long distance backpacking as well.
Yeah. And so for our listeners out there who are into ultra running, and for you guys who have an interest in it, I would recommend, if you have a chance, to go through the back catalog here, listen to the Gabe and Kevin Fastback the JMT episode. Pretty funny about what they encountered and what their expectations were and what reality was. And then also I had a chance to talk to Brendan Leonard, who is called, he has the Semi-Rad website.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a fascinating guy. And I believe I think he had a video about how to run 100 miles. And I thought it was an instructional video. So I tuned in, and it wasn't an instructional video. It was a story, and it was an awesome story. Awesome. And then also for season 2, episode 1 of the podcast, we interviewed Michael Wardian. So he is an ultra runner, and he has some experience on the Barkley Marathons course. So wow. Don't know if you guys have heard of the Barkleys, but I'm kind of obsessed with the Barkleys and talking to people. So awesome. Tune into those 3 episodes. If you're ultra runners, those are really good episodes.
Right on. I will. Definitely will. And Chris and I are working on getting an application or a permit for the John Muir Trail right now. And I just can't wait. Can't wait. I'll definitely tune into those. Those are awesome.
Yeah. We have a series of episodes called Sections of the Trail, and I break down each section of the trail with a couple of guys that I hiked with, and we kind of do a deep dive just into the history behind the names on the trail and our experience on the trail, the uh-oh moments, the oh crap, and just the beauty and adventure out there. So
love it. That's awesome.
Very good. Blister Buckets, how about your background? Where did you grow up, and how'd you get interested in this?
Well, I kind of have a weird background also. I grew up in Ukraine, spent my first 12 years there. My parents were missionaries also, helping families and marriages. And so I grew up there. I grew up outside a lot.
No wonder you guys have the same butt tattoos. I mean, you guys are tight.
Yeah, that's right, brother. But so grew up there, spent a lot of time outside, a lot of brothers. So we were always, trying to get into trouble and exploring places. But it wasn't till really in high school that when I went on a backpacking trip with my high school over a summer in the Dolly Sods Wilderness in West Virginia. That was just beautiful and wonderful. And then Bugs was heading up this outside club thing at the school. And so we'd go on like overnights and go explore areas. And then senior year, we decided it'd be a good idea to hit the Smokies for a couple days and do a backpacking trip. And man, did that destroy us and taught us some lessons. But through those experiences, I just fell in love with spending multiple days on end in the wilderness, and just the resilience that takes, and the adventure that brings, and the unknowns, and just kind of flowing through life and nature. So that just kind of got me hooked. And then when I met Chris in college, I'd never done trail running before, but this man was like, yo, you can run on trails. And I was like, no way. And so started running on trails, and like did some half marathons, did a marathon. And then eventually did an ultra marathon, and who knows what's next, but it's been an amazing place to live in Chattanooga, and just like explore the nature that's at our fingertips here. And so just falling in love with being outside and in beautiful nature that I think is created and so wonderful. So
That's awesome. So did you meet Bugs before you met Rad?
yeah, we went to the same high school, friends in high school.
Not in Ukraine though. You got to explain that.
Yeah, in St. Louis, Missouri. Sorry.
Yeah, we've been all over the world: Kenya, Ukraine, Chattanooga, and now St. Louis.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, Bugs, how about you?
So my story is a little bit different than them. Did not grow up in a missionary family. Did not grow up on the other side of the world. Did not grow up running around on the trails. So I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, what we just mentioned. That's where I met Bo after he came to the States. But in the Midwest, there's not a whole lot of outdoorsy culture like there is in some of the more Western states. So I always had a knack just to explore, go adventure, go run around the woods, build forts, do that kind of stuff. But you can only do that to an extent when you're in the Midwest. There's no big mountains to climb, no big cliffs. You can't do crazy rafting trips, things like that. So it's something I've always been interested in, but never really had a chance to do much. But so Chris and Bo more like the running aspect. I more like just the straight adventure aspect. I've traveled over to Europe. I hitchhiked all the way across Europe one summer. Then I ended up hitchhiking down to Mexico the next year. And that's actually where I met Rad, down in Mexico. And that's basically where we hung out for the first time, was on a climbing trip down to El Potrero Chico in Mexico.
Right, and that is depicted in the To Measure a Mile documentary.
Yes, correct. It's sort of how the film starts out. Rad and I were on a huge climb down in Mexico, and we're just getting to know each other at the time. And he goes, "Dude, I'm thinking about doing the Pacific Crest Trail, this summer." That's cool, sweet man, that'll be fun. He's like, would you want to come? Yeah, sure. That sounds like an adventure. Let's do it. So that my mentality is more, hey, let's just go on an adventure and not have to go work an internship. Let's just get out in the woods. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, and how the trail story started for me was more having Rad in my life. Just say, hey, let's go hike to Canada for fun. Why not?
Right. So Blister Bucket, you are the linchpin here.
Yeah.
You knew each of them individually, and you've brought the three of them together, or the three of you together.
We Bugs and I hitchhiked down to Mexico, and then I met up with Chris there, and then they went and they were far better climbers, so they spent a lot of time climbing, and that's where they cooked up these plans while I was down at the bottom watching them.
Yeah, and for our listeners out there who didn't take advantage of the pause during the introduction of this episode and watch the video, this video is not just about hiking. There is some serious climbing and some serious climbing video and photos that are just so impressive and crazy. I mean, that's just wild what you guys are doing out there.
It's a good time.
That's what my parents say as well. They think it's pretty crazy and out there as well.
So have you guys had formal climbing experience? I mean, climbing training?
Yeah, I led the climbing program at my school at Covenant College, is a college here in Chattanooga where I went to school. So I got some training there, and kind of led some trips over the summer and worked as just a climbing guide a couple of the summers and had some training. But Ike just bugs learn on the spot. He's just a natural Spartan, such a crusher. So yeah, we were instantly buds when we met down in Mexico.
Yeah,
I watched a couple YouTube videos once on how to climb. That's about it. I'm just kidding. That's how I learned, though. I did watch some YouTube videos in high school and learned how to rappel and tie knots by literally rappelling off of my friend's chimney. See, again, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. There's nothing to do besides rappel off people's chimneys on their house, and that's how you learn. So that's how I learned.
And was the YouTube video on how to rappel down a chimney?
No. We personalized it to ourselves, right?
Got it.
It was, yeah.
Smart. You guys look very comfortable in your climbing gear and on the side of a mountain.
That's fun. It's fun. It's definitely something that I wanted to make sure we tried to merge. Is the PCT goes through so many rad climbing areas that I didn't know it was going to be a possibility, but I was really hoping we could get some climbing gear shipped out and hit some of these cool places, because it's always been a dream of mine to climb in Yosemite. It's been a lifelong goal of Bugs and me to climb the nose of the Salate Wall and El Cap. And so when we got to spend some time in Yosemite, we just kind of took as much advantage of it as we could. We weren't there long enough to try a big wall like the nose, but it's definitely something we're trying to get back out to do.
Mm-hmm. All right. Mm-hmm. Very good. Now let's go back to the John Muir Trail 2017. Brad, did you go northbound or southbound?
We went northbound. Yeah.
Northbound. So you started out at Whitney. Did you go through Kennedy Meadows, or did you come up through the portal?
We started at Cottonwood Pass, I think. Okay. And just because of permit issues, I had kind of a crazy summer. I was doing an internship out in Tanzania. And so I had one of my buddies that was planning the whole thing. And I flew out from Tanzania, flew into Las Vegas. They picked me up. It was like over 3 days. I went from like the desert herding camels with the Maasai people to summiting Whitney and wading through the snow. I was like, what the heck is this, man? It was some other culture shock, but I was just blown away. It was, it was stunning. It was incredible.
Yeah, we're going to get into the Sierras a little bit later as we go through your trip on the PCT, but can you just name quickly for us maybe top 3 moments on the John Muir Trail in 2017?
Summiting Whitney was one of the biggest ones. I think just the relief between, you can pretty much almost see Death Valley from the top of Mount Whitney at 14,500. You can see the lowest point in the state. You're standing at the highest point in the lower 48. And I think just that majesty of that all just crashes in on you, and you realize just how beautiful that scene is. Probably my favorite part of the JMT is the Golden Staircase leading down into Deer Meadow right before Muir Pass. Gotta say, I was moved to tears both times I was going through that. It's just a spiritual place, in my opinion. And it really, the first time we hit it at sunset, which was stunning. Second time I hit it midday, but both times were just magical. But the first time in 2017, it truly was a golden staircase. We're walking down, and I felt like I was walking into heaven. I mean, it was just unbelievable. That night we had some encounters with some big bears too. It was just a really fun time. But
yeah,
also,
a lot of people are moved to tears by the Golden Staircase, but it's frequently the people who are going southbound have to climb up it.
I was gonna say, man, those tears are different. It was nice going down that staircase. That's for sure. And then I'd say the third one is Muir Pass, just beautiful. 2017, it was a lot more snowy than when I went through in 2018. I also went through a little later in the season on the PCT, and so I felt like, especially I grew up in Africa, and I just spent that summer in Africa in the desert, and I felt like I was walking through Antarctica, battling up there to Muir Hut, and it was just like this otherworldly experience. I felt like I was like Shackleton on his adventure through the Arctic. I was so sick, and so I think those were probably the top 3 moments for me.
Nice. Those are an awesome top 3. Very good. Hey, we're going to go to a break here in just a second, but before we do, I want to just touch on the video, the documentary, To Measure a Mile. Before we go to break, can you give us some insight into just the meaning behind the title of the documentary, To Measure a Mile? Kind of just whet our appetite going into break here.
I really appreciate you asking that, because so far I've not had many people talk to me about the title, and it's something that I put a lot of thought into. And I tried to leave it a little ambiguous in the film, so I didn't explicitly explain it. And I only mentioned it one time in the film purposely, because I wanted people to kind of think about it. And really, what it means to me is when you begin the journey, then you're very green. You have no idea what you're doing. It kind of became this microcosm of life for me. So I started seeing, you start as kind of a baby and then you learn these lessons very fast. And I mean, Ike and I felt like we were just, and Bo, like we were just being thrown all these lessons so fast. And it's like you're growing up really, really quickly, and you start viewing the trail differently as you go. So in the desert, it's kind of like this honeymoon phase. Everything is like crazy and you're really happy. And then as you get into the Sierras, you're kind of a seasoned hiker and you start getting your resupply dialed in. NorCal is kind of a grind. And by that point, you're more of a seasoned hiker and you're just throwing all these challenges as you go. And you start to, as I was going, I started to redefine what the trail actually meant to me. So from the beginning, it was just this physical challenge that I wanted to accomplish and overcome. And as I went, I learned more and more that it was more about the people that I was meeting along the way and the experiences that I was learning of myself personally. And so these images that you're getting thrown at you all day, I mean, it's just the most beautiful scenes in the world that you see every single day. The law of diminishing returns starts to set in. And if you're out there just for the stimulation of the landscapes and the scenes, then oftentimes the mental challenge can overtake you and you struggle a lot more. And so what you have to do is you have to start finding these gifts of the trail that are extra landscapes. So what am I learning in the trail besides just this beauty that I'm walking through? And for me, it was the people, and it was the lessons I was personally learning, the confidence that I was building in myself. And for me, that's how I started to measure the distance. And that's how I started to measure each stage. So it wasn't this stage I'm walking through the Sierras or Lassen National Park, or, I'm going through the Northern Cascades. It was, that's an element of it. But this stage, I met Roadrunner, I met Grizz, I met Same. I learned that I could push myself farther than I had ever pushed myself in the past on a 24-hour challenge. Like all these things that you're learning these lessons, and that becomes how you measure the distance. And to me, I was measuring my miles more on those lessons I was learning rather than just a physical distance of mile by mile by mile by mile. And that was honestly what helped me get through the journey and finish the trail ultimately.
Fantastic. I know you put a lot of thought into that, and I picked up on kind of the change in your attitude and mentality as you got closer to the end of the trail. And that's when you mentioned in the documentary, the title "To Measure a Mile" and how you look at things. So thank you very much for your thoughtfulness that you put into that and for sharing that. That's awesome.
Totally, man. Yeah, I appreciate that question.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the actual hike, 2,600 miles from Mexico to Canada on the PCT. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
My name's Chris Carter, also known as Rad. I'm the creator of To Measure a Mile, a documentary on the Pacific Crest Trail.
And my name's Bo.
My name's Andrew, also known as Bugs, lead co-star of the film To Measure a Mile. Who knows? You decide for yourself. And you're listening to the John freaking Muir Pod.
All right, welcome back. We are talking to Bugs, Blister Buckets, and Rad about the trail documentary To Measure a Mile, their experience on the PCT. And we had just gotten into the title before we left. And also, Rad has ventured deep into his closet and pulled out his pair of BOA shorts. He's going to share those with us here on YouTube. Look at that. Describe that for our listeners out there who can't see this.
Oh, this is the best piece of gear I had aside from Bleach. Are these shorts right here, and they're BOA shorts, most comfy shorts on the market. And this one happens to be repping the Kenya flag, so I gotta rep the motherland and wear the most cozy pair of tiny shorts ever, and is good deal.
There's not much cozy there.
There it is.
So I need to get a Shemagh scarf and some BOA shorts repping the Kenyan flag.
You will be
as soon as we're
styling.
done here.
That's right.
All right. Very good. Hey, Rad, do you have dual citizenship?
No, I'm an American citizen.
Okay.
I was a resident alien in Kenya. So I never got dual citizenship. No, I was born in America actually, but we moved to Kenya when I was very young, about 5-6 years old, and don't remember much about America beforehand. Grew up there my whole life, and then just came back to the States for college. And yeah, I've lived here ever. Well, I went back for about a year after the PCT, but have recently come back and have been back in Chattanooga now for about a year now. Time's flying.
Yeah, for sure. And Blister Buckets, are you a Ukrainian citizen?
No, I was born in the state of New York, but before I turned 1, we moved over. So just an American citizen, figuring out how to
Okay.
do life.
And we know that Bugs is a citizen of the world, so no need to question him on that.
There we go.
Global nomad.
Very good. All right, let's go back to the video, the documentary. It was so well done. My hat's off to you. You know, as a hiker out there who comes back and tries to create these videos and share them with families and friends and put them on YouTube, I feel wholly inadequate compared to what you were able to put together. I mean, it was like I was in a movie theater watching a premiere. It was incredible.
And I really appreciate those kind words, man.
I think I saw that you had 194,000 views in the first 2 months.
Yeah, it's blowing up a little more than I thought. I to be honest, I wasn't even planning on making a video, much less putting it out there. I started just shooting candid moments of Ike walking through these beautiful sunsets, and I'm just looking through the screen like, holy crap, what is this crap stuff that we're walking through? This is beautiful. And started learning a bit more of how to kind of shoot things creatively. And I guess, as I talked about before, I started experiencing this notion of this journey that I wasn't expecting. And so many events started happening that I started thinking about the story aspect of what I was going through, and wanted to really capture this and share it with my kids and my grandkids, and just capture this as a gift for my trail family as well, to give it to my family, and then also to the people that I was hiking with and to trail angels that helped us along the way. So that was the main motivation, and what I started kind of thinking of actually, structuring it in a narrative style and taking more creative shots. But I never really planned on synthesizing it into a huge film. That kind of came a little later.
Yeah, and with your permission, I'm going to go back to just using Bo and Ike, because that's what's used throughout the video, right? And
Totally.
I don't want to get people confused or anything. So,
Totally.
Bo and Ike, I want to get the skinny from you. How tedious was it? How tiresome and how frustrating when he had to set up the B reel film where you had to he had to set up the camera, and you guys had to walk through it. And you had to go back and get the camera. All these great shots of you guys on the trail. Any frustration there? You tell the truth here.
I tell you what, Doc, I understand why they pay these Hollywood stars the big bucks, because it was rough being a star in this movie, shirtless, running around through the desert. It was rough. No, I'm just playing. It was, it was good, because I think something you touched on there was, I don't think there ever was seldom there were moments when Chris wanted to, quote unquote, set up a shot. I think that's one thing that makes this film so powerful, is that most of these shots were just start walking. Okay, great. Like, just do what you're doing every day, or just, hey, like, let's have a conversation. Hey, like, just live your life how you're living it, and let's capture those moments. So it wasn't ever annoying, or Chris wasn't being bothersome at all. Hey, go stand here, do this, do that. Like, that's not what it was. And I think that's exactly what makes the film so powerful, is because everything was candid. And that's what was so awesome about it.
Now, hang on a second, Ike. There was a particular shot I remember of
you got
somebody standing on top of a rock right when the sun is setting in the distance. I can't imagine that was just completely unplanned and you happened upon that. It wasn't Chris saying, Ike, scramble up to that rock right now so I can get this shot in.
You may have caught me red-handed there a little bit, Doc. But honestly, though, but the thing is, that views like that come around so often, and every night it's like, hey, let's just go take 5 minutes and take a break. Like, you're gonna go stand up on a rock like that and have that overlook. So to your point, yes, being facetious, it is very true that some of those were set up, but also other times it's like, that's where we would go take a break, right? Let's go stand there and hang out and soak it in. It was,
As rock climbers, any rock we saw, we were just scrambling up. Like, I would just see Ike like throw his pack down and just start sprinting through these rocks. I'd be like ripping my camera out and trying to snag a shot of him.
That's great. Hey, Chris, had you had any filmmaking experience before this?
No, not really. I bought the camera in college and started faffing around with it a little bit and threw together a couple of short things just from small trips that I had been on, but I kind of learned on the fly. I mean, it took me 2 years. It took me a really long time to put it together. I would not say would not consider myself a filmmaker at all, but it was just a fun process, a creative outlet, and something that was just a great kind of artistic expression for me over these past 2 years since the trail, and also just such a beautiful way to reminisce on all the journeys and the memories from the trail. And I'm very thankful for the process.
Well, I can't emphasize this enough. I felt like I was watching a video that was put together by somebody who had gone through film school. So it was really impressive. Great
This
job.
man's frustratingly good at everything he does.
Mm.
Like, he puts a lot of effort in everything he does, and he's just good at it. He's good at running. He's good at art. He's good at filmmaking. He's good at hiking miles and miles and miles. He's good at so much.
Yeah, we saw a little bit of his art on the film with when he and Ike did a little present to one of the trail angels on the trail, right? Chris, did you do all 3 of those drawings, or was that a
No,
joint
that's
effort?
Ike is an artist as well. There's actually a small clip of him showing a drawing of Half Dome that he did while he was in Yosemite. He drew some beautiful things. Both of us really enjoy drawing, primarily using graphite, just sketch pads, and we took 2 sketch pads on the trail with us, and were able to capture some pretty cool scenes on the way. It was pretty fun.
Maybe we'll add that in as a sub to the gear list. If you like art, bring some pencils and a small notepad, because you'll definitely find the use for it.
Lots of inspiration on the trail, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. And also, I have to compliment you on your musical selections. Just watching the credits, I didn't realize how many songs you had in there. I mean, it was jam packed with music, and that's what else made it so good and so entertaining. Was the beautiful scenery and your antics all set to music. It was fantastic.
Appreciate that, Doc.
Did you get permission from those artists?
Yeah, so there's a thing on YouTube where you can see what specific license each song has. So I used songs that were already licensed to YouTube. I just couldn't monetize it. They get the ad revenue. And then I used MusicBed for most of the songs. MusicBed is a subscription-based program where you can download any of the music once you have a subscription, and then any of that music you can use on YouTube and on like ads and stuff if you need to. And so I use most of my music from MusicBed, but there's some songs like 500 miles and different things that I wanted to use that I couldn't find on MusicBed, but I realized that I would have to demonetize the video to use them. But to me, it was worth it. And you just have to check and see what the specific licensure is with YouTube, and it'll tell you you can use the song, you just can't monetize it. So that's how I did that.
Right. And what has been the response to your video with 194,000 views in 2 months? I'm really hoping that the highlight has not just been me reaching out from the John Freakin' Muir Pod and inviting you guys on. I'm hoping there's been some other bigger impact to you guys personally.
Yeah, it's been really cool. I've been blown away by the just amount of personal DMs I've been getting on Instagram and Facebook, and it's just been a blessing. That my greatest joy is to hear people that are inspired. I mean, I've had countless people reach out and say, man, the film like changed me, and I really want to do the trail now, or I want to live a more adventurous life. I want to get out more. Like I have an injury right now, and this has given me hope, and I get so stoked whenever I hear that. It just really makes me happy. That's what I want to use film for in the future. That's what I want to be able to tell people's stories through film. And so if I can move someone to emotion, if I can move someone to change their trajectory as far as just adventure is concerned, then I've done what I set out to do. So very, very thankful for that. I've had a couple people reach out to me, and I've done, kind of some other podcasts and some other conversations with people. It's been just really cool to talk and kind of process more what the journey was. I think after you come back from something like that, it takes years to process it. Not a day goes by where I don't think of the trail and the impact it had on my life. Getting to share that story with other people is just the greatest joy, and getting to, kind of give this as a gift to the people that made the journey so incredible has been an incredible experience for me, and has just been beautiful during this kind of difficult season of COVID. And that's another thing. A lot of people have said, man, this has been great to watch this during COVID and during lockdown. And it's just allowed me to kind of escape back to the trail. And that gets me really happy when I see comments like that.
Fantastic. Hey, I've got another feature that I'm starting right now with this episode. We're calling it the hiking pole. It's kind of a play on words, right? Hiking pole, but it's POLL.
Oh, okay.
All right. So my first hiking poll tonight with the three of you is going to be a way to introduce the rest of your trail family. So here it is. Present company excluded. Eich, who was your favorite member of the trail family out there?
It's a good question. Roadrunner. It was so funny when, like, the day we met Roadrunner, and her name is Roadrunner, obviously, because she runs absurdly fast. Chris and I come over this hill, and there's just this girl standing out there, like, oh, who's that? Like, let's go. Like, why is she all by herself? Why didn't she have a trail family? So we start talking with her. Hey, whatever, my name's Roadrunner, I'm from Australia. Cool. Do you want to run down this mountain with us? And so we literally ran down 5,000 feet of elevation in the first, like, 20 minutes that we met this girl. And from then on, we had so much fun together.
Nice. All right. And Bo, how about you? You can't name Roadrunner.
Yeah. They met Roadrunner. Was it
2 days after?
2 days after I bailed the trail? I never got to meet this girl. I'd say I don't remember his name, but I was having a tough day. We were hiking. Just at some point, just on the trail, I just started seeing bare footprints, as in like human footprints without a shoe. And just in the dust. Yeah. And just like watch these footprints for about 10 miles till we get to Mike's place, which it was just a strange place. And we went to bed in this abandoned RV, just kind of at Mike's place. And
Mike is a trail angel along the trail that provides water cache at a very key place near Warner Springs.
And I can't believe I forget his name, but this dude spent the night in there with us. But it turned out halfway through the previous day, his shoes were giving him blisters, so he took them off and just started hiking barefoot from then on.
His trail name was Reckon.
Yeah.
Reckon as in RECKON or W?
Yeah, well, he would always say
IN apostrophe.
more so that one. That's a really good.
Sounds like
he would always say, reckon so, and that's how he got his name.
Yep.
Good memory.
Got it. All right, Chris, how about you?
Man, it is so hard to say. I had such a variety of trail families, and I really don't want to single out any one person from my future trail family. So I am going to say this with the caveat of everybody was very special, but this person was not very involved in our trail family, but for a very small amount of time. And I also want to say this because Eich also got to meet him, as a guy named Peacefoot. And he was an older guy. So he had hiked the PCT before, hiked the AT and the CDT. And we ran into him right before Warner Springs. Eich and I had just said bye to Bo. And he was almost like this, like just kind of a trail godfather to us. We started walking with him, and he just started giving us wisdom on what to do. We were still very new to the through hiking game. And first of all, he was so humble, so kind, and just this deeply spiritual and passionate person that hiked in sandals and was super minimalist. And Eich and I were just like, who is this guy? This is so rad. And I just remember talking to him and just hearing his ethos on life and being so inspired and so moved. And he just had such a big impact on me. I ended up running into him again way up in Northern California, got to hike with him for a tiny bit. And I think just the impact he had on me during the short amount of time I was able to spend with him was pretty profound.
Nice. And now I remember from the film, you had several other people that you hiked with, people like Jandals, Flat Earth,
that's right,
Briz, Birdman, same. And I'm sure there are many more that I just didn't catch their names, but maybe they'll crop up here in the rest of our talk tonight.
Totally.
All right. Hey, let's talk about that first section of the trail. I find the PCT fascinating because it has so many different personalities, so many different ecosystems that are unique unto themselves. And the first 700 miles of the trail is in desert. And take us through that a little bit. I mean, that's through hiking is tough. Through hiking in a desert is something else. And having that at the beginning of a 2,600 mile trip, I mean, that's a rough way to start.
I can take it away, man.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start with that. I mean, there's so many things that are hard about that. It's funny because when you hear the word desert in your mind, you hear 700 miles of desert, you hear, oh, that's just going to be really hot, really dry, but at least it'll be flat. Nope. There was so much elevation gain even in this quote unquote desert, because it's a high desert in California. So it's like you're hot, you're thirsty, and you're tired, and you're still climbing elevation. It's not like, a give and take. You take the water away, but at least it's flat. No, it's not like that. Extremely hot the whole time. I think the hardest part was the fact that water was so sparse, especially because we started a little bit later in the season than most people would. So either springs were dried up maybe, or water caches were wicked low, things like that. So at times we'd be going, 20, 25 miles with all of our water, and that'd be about 6 liters at a time. And that's, I don't remember what the weight was, Chris, was 2 or 3 pounds per liter. But that adds up very, very fast. I think that's the hardest part about the desert, is the fact that you have to carry just gobs and gobs of water. And then when you get to a water source, it's either musty and there's dead animals laying in it, or it's in the middle of the day and the water's literally like 100 degrees because it's been sitting in jugs out in the sun in a water cache. So that was my biggest beef with the desert.
Sounds like you're pretty passionate about that. Sounds like you've had some time to think about that. Like
Yeah,
700
we had
miles.
700 miles
thinking
of
about
over
it.
it.
Yeah, nice. And there is an epic scene in the video of going down into this, I don't know what it was, some kind of cistern, and there is an actual dead animal in the water source. What kind of animal was that, Chris?
I think it was like a fox or something. It was hard to say because it was just the skeleton of it. But that water was mink. It was bad news, and it was that was a 30-mile stretch to get to that water source. So, and then it was going to be another like 20 miles after that, I remember. So we didn't really have any other option. And like Ike said, we started so late in the season because this guy had to get a freaking scuba license.
Which guy? Which guy's responsible?
Ike.
Ike.
And so we had so many things that, like, it was hotter for us, and the water was just a lot more spread out. It was very difficult. I remember looking at some of the Facebook pages as we were getting up closer to the hike and seeing some people start, and everyone was like, "Oh man, good luck. You're starting pretty late." And I was like, "Frick, man, we got like 3 more weeks till we start." And so yeah, it definitely added an element. I think the desert is brutal in a lot of ways. Like Ike said, you have that elevation change, which is something that not a lot of people are prepared for, on top of the dehydration and all of that. And I think it is definitely a challenge to be thrown into that right at the beginning, but it does teach you lessons very fast. That's for sure. But the shade is a big deal. I mean, I remember it being so difficult at the beginning to just find shade, and just I remember one miserable day during lunch where we all just crawled under a thorn bush, and we're all like trying to eat lunch like under this thorn bush, and it was just heinous, like miserable. And that miserableness does accentuate the beautiful days and makes them more beautiful. But yeah, it's a task for sure.
And there it was for our listeners out there who have watched the video, the documentary, and who had taken the over under on the halfway point of the episode for when the first time Chris would use the word heinous. Those that had that point in the podcast here, congratulations, you have won. I thought we'd hear a lot earlier than that. I actually had my money on the first segment where we would hear the word heinous. But
well, Doc, it's because you just mentioned the word desert now, so those words are synonymous. That's why it's coming out now.
Got it. Yeah, I picked up on your favorite your word that you used throughout the video. For those of you who hadn't seen the video, 2 very memorable kind of signature practices, one of which is the use of the word heinous by Chris, and the other is the tongue flicking by Ike. Those are classic moments. Yep, there you go. Iconic. That's the description right there. Yes. All right. And for a time, you guys actually lived under a bridge out there in the middle of the desert. Did you not?
that was part of what contributed to how low the desert was, because I lost both the buddies, and so both of them got injured, which was super difficult to say goodbye. I think when you think about how much effort it takes to start the trail, even you have to say goodbye to so much. I mean, Bo was leaving a girl that he was dating. Ike was thinking about dating a girl and left her, and you have to say no to a bunch of things, and you got to save up all this money, you got to segregate this time, and so you really have to start when you have to leave because of an injury. Then it's not just, oh, I'm going to miss out on this adventure. It's like, man, I sacrificed a bunch to do this, and so I think the gravity of that really hits you and compounds the mental game, and that contributed to how difficult the desert was. 2 days after we left Bo, both Ike and I got injured. I got really bad shin splints, and his toenails were doing something crazy, just popping off. I had crazy blood blisters under them. We knew we had to stop, and we were going across the Coachella Valley, which is very, very dry and windswept, and just a brutal section. We hit it midday against everybody's warnings. Somehow still hit it midday and hobbled under this bridge, hitched into Cabazon, and we had sent a bunch of stuff there. We had sent some food, and I could send a sleeping bag. Nothing made it to Cabazon. It was just a miserable day. We battled back and, spent a couple of days under the bridge. Thankfully got picked up by this trail angel named Mama Bear. And man, it was like, if you, the lowest of low, that was probably the lowest I was on trail, because I thought I was going to have to leave the trail, honestly, too. I'd been struggling with shin splints for a long time in my ultra runs, and I knew how debilitating they were. And I was so sad that night. We were sleeping under the bridge. There's rats crawling around over us and train barreling down over us every hour.
I think we woke up at one point, and we looked over, and there's a hobo sleeping next to us.
There was literally someone sleeping right next to us, and we had no idea who that guy was. It was hilarious. The contrast of that time under the bridge to when Paula battled down under the bridge and snagged us, drove us to her beautiful, beautiful house in Palm Springs, just lavished us with everything you can imagine. I mean, it is enough to bring me to tears even now, just the contrast between that moment and her generosity. It was too much fun. It was great. Yeah. But that was a big contributor to how hard the desert was, is we're trying to fend off injuries and had to say goodbye to both of these guys. So
yeah, trail magic, trail angel, something really special. And I want to go back just for a second. Ike is pointing out the hobo like he is so much different than the two of you after 700 miles in the desert. Are you kidding me?
Touche, Doc. Touche.
Right there with him, man.
He probably woke up and said, "Oh my gosh, who are these two guys?"
Get me out of here, bro. I know we're gonna.
Man, you've been calling me on my BS tonight, Doc. I love it.
Hey, we keep it real here. We keep it real. Hey, Bo, tell me about the heartbreak, man. I mean, injuries take you out in the middle of the desert. How did that go down? How did you feel?
Yeah, that I mean, to this day, it still is. It's just a heavy spot for me, because I wish I could have been out there longer. I don't think I would have ever been able to finish it, just with time constraints that I've had and financial constraints. But I wish I could have journeyed with these guys, because I love them so much. Some of my best friends, and I just love being outdoors. But the desert was hard. That was a very hard section, and Chris kept telling us, just wait till we get to the Sierras. Just wait. And I never got to see them, so I'm hoping to go back and see those. I feel like I have some unfinished business out there. But man, just the blisters getting worse and worse. I made an amateur mistake with my socks. I thought they were the appropriate socks, but they weren't. And so they just chewed my feet up day after day after day. And when we were hitting some of those 20+ mile days, they just, it was just excruciating pain. And I needed time to heal. So we tried to take some time to heal with the Holmans. But man, it was a lonely time, because I stayed there to heal, and they went on, and I was just left alone with strangers, kind strangers, but my thoughts and an aching heart for the girl I loved who wasn't there. And so when I hit the trail again, hoping to catch up with them, it just wasn't the same, and my blisters didn't get better. And so at some point I just hiked back. You know, I was by myself, blistering hot, running out of water. Wasn't sure what I was going to do because I didn't think I could make it to the campsite where they were. So I just hike back, tried to catch a hitch out, but couldn't. So I turned my sights towards San Diego and pulled a quick hitch there. And it was demoralizing because the ride, I got a wonderful ride with this awesome guy, but it took an hour and a half to drive back those 100 and whatever miles that we had hiked over the 10 plus days or whatever. It took an hour and a half to drive back to San Diego where I started.
It's brutal, man.
And
Bo, this sounds like a Lifetime movie.
it hurt, man. It hurt. And then my friend was gone, so I just was homeless in San Diego for a little bit, but that's a different story.
That's another
Very
one.
good. Hey, do you want to score some points and profess your love for this young lady on the podcast here?
Yeah.
Oh, it's professed, bro.
Oh, I would
Both
love
been professed.
Yeah, no, it's not a secret.
He's married.
Oh,
I've been married a year with her. She's wonderful. Hannah Thomas is wonderful. Love of my life.
it all worked out. Congratulations.
Attaboy.
Okay, but Bo, you and Ike, you guys got you were injured on the trail. You didn't get to see the full JMT, the full experience in the Sierras. You two have to get back out and get a JMT permit, and then come back on the pod and talk to us about it.
Oh, we'll be back. We'll be back.
I'll do it, Dom.
I did the first 30 miles of the, actually not really. That doesn't even count. Forget I said that.
Ike was talking there, and then he remembered, oh, Doc's going to call me out on this.
Word.
All right, which brings me to my second hiking poll, and that is it comes from the film, because I remember a moment in the film with a big piece of pizza in Ike's hand, and he was going to town on it. So my hiking poll is this: does pineapple belong on pizza?
Doc, I'm
Yes
so
or
glad
no?
you asked. Of course it does.
No, it does. I will die on this mountain. It belongs on pizza.
How many pineapples do you find in Italy?
I don't know. Call him out, Doc. Call him out. Come on.
Well, Bo, you are outnumbered 3-1 in this argument because pineapple does belong on pizza.
Yes.
There we go.
Thank you, Doc.
Very good.
Although I will say we didn't have a lot of choice on which type of pizza we got when we were there in Yosemite, if that is the one you're talking about, because we got a bunch of free pizza that we would just kind of find around.
No, Doc's talking about when we were at the house with
Oh, with the Holmans. Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was with the Trail
Yeah,
Angels.
that's
He
what he's
brought in
talking
this
about.
big square pizza, kind of like almost falling off the paddle, and then next thing you know, you see Ike with a big old slice going to town. So
I thought you were talking about Ike and I being homeless in Yosemite and stealing pizza from people.
that is a different story, evidently.
Oh, man.
All right. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to make a quick run through the rest of the trail. We still have like 1,900 miles to go, so we're going to have to pick up the pace, boys. Stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. We're talking to Chris, Bo, and Ike about their experience on the PCT, and we have just entered the desert section. We're getting through the desert section, and unfortunately, in the desert, we lose Bo to injury. Was it shin splints or was it foot, Achilles, toes? What was it, Bo?
I had more blisters than toes. And
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah, that was not a pretty picture, by the way. That was not my favorite scene in the video.
My favorite moment either.
And then I think we also lose Ike to shin splints.
Yeah, that's correct.
Shortly into the Sierras.
Yeah, practically made it to Kennedy Meadows, and I had to dip out in Kearsarge, which I think is about 30 miles past Kennedy Meadows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to hear your thoughts on that. You know, you start out thinking, okay, I'm going to hike from Mexico to Canada, and then you get curtailed by injury.
Mm.
And you know, just full disclosure here, I'm not a through hiker of the JMT. I have not done the PCT or anything close to the PCT. In fact, you know, my longest stretch of hiking is 125 miles. And that in itself, in my opinion, in my experience, was epic and full of meaning and some of the best memories of my life. And I want to hear how you guys feel about starting out on this, what could have been a 2,600 mile experience. And because of injury, it's cut short. And I don't think that it's any less valuable or any less meaningful because you had to cut it short. You guys had to have the time of your lives out there and seen things that 99.9% of the world's population does not get to see because they haven't put in the effort and haven't made the miles to see that. And so take us through a little bit about how you feel and what that meant.
I think that's a really interesting topic there because Chris completed it. Bo and I had to get off the trail. And I think some sentiments that Bo and I both shared. We didn't know we were sharing these sentiments until a number of months after the trail, which is very interesting. But the sentiment that we both sort of shared was we started the trail. We were on the trail. We did a section of the trail. Oftentimes now people ask, hey, what's the coolest thing you've done? Have you done any long hikes? What's the longest hike you've done? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, well, I was on the PCT. Well, did you complete the PCT? No, I didn't actually finish it. I didn't finish it. And there's almost this twinge of guilt that you feel when you say you didn't complete something, even though it's due to injury. So I think it's really interesting because, made it 600-700 miles on the trail and people's minds are blown like, whoa, 600-700 miles. That's insane. And in my mind, I say, yeah, well, it's not 2,600 miles. I didn't finish it.
Yeah.
But I think it's a very interesting topic around how everything's relative, and that even in the time that you do spend on the trail, no matter how long or short, there are lessons that can be learned, and you can have the time of your life if that's what you want it to be, which is really fascinating. And I think for me, getting injured in the Sierras, I had, a month or two left of my summer. What the heck am I going to do? Am I just going to wander around California for a month? Well, for me, I had my climbing gear shipped out to me. I went and lived in Yosemite for a month and did a bunch of climbing. So I think it's one of those lessons of one door closes, another's going to open. And that's going to be different for every person. But I think that's a sentiment that a lot of hikers can share because many people on the trail will get hurt. And I don't know if Chris knows the stats or what it is, but some percentage of people, the majority of people who leave the trail leave due to injury and may feel that same way, which is really interesting. I think will hit home with a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it was a good to discuss it with Ike because I think we were both feeling maybe some tinge of regret having not done it, some tinge of being phony. For people like, oh, you backpack. Yeah, I have done. Like, what have you done? Since you just you tell some of the story about the PCT, but you felt like you left halfway through, or like in my case, that was just starting out, and there's so much that happened afterwards. So many miles to cover, so many lessons to learn in that journey that I never was able to. And while I had an amazing and hard time while I was there, my journey continued as I bailed the trail, to as I went home and, had to figure out how to do life therein after. And just, up to this day where I feel like there's some unfinished business with through hiking and that I would love to get back. And it's an inspiration to me to try more things and to do more things because, there's so much out there that can be done. And sometimes it's not the right time, but maybe another time that's the right time.
Yeah, there is a really valid phenomena called post-trail depression, right? And readjusting and reintegrating into society after being out on the trail. And I have to think that is maybe enhanced by someone who was going for 2,600 miles and had to come off earlier than that. And so not only you're dealing with kind of conflicting feelings about that, but also about reintegrating into society. So that's got to be pretty tough.
I think if I could add one thing real quick, these guys have the personal experience. I did feel gutted for them and it was hard for me to go on. But for me, when you talk about the guilt that you experience and the shame with that, is in a way you've already had to mentally decide that you're going to hike the PCT before you're getting on the PCT. And that in itself is an incredible accomplishment, to decide I'm going to take time off from work. I might have to quit a job. I might have to leave a relationship. I'm going to save every single penny, especially if you're a college kid. Saving up that cash to do this is brutal. And the amount of sacrifice that it takes to make that decision, to take 5 months out of your life and do something like this, even before you set foot on trail, that is an incredible accomplishment that's going to teach you a lot throughout your life, and is going to teach you values that are going to benefit you throughout life. And so I think for anyone that does feel a sense of shame and frustration about having to leave the trail because of injury, you've almost had that accomplishment in your heart and in your mind, that resolute determination that I'm going to do this. That is very, very potent and not something to look down on.
Well said. The toughest step in any journey is the first step. And the fact that you guys made that commitment and you guys were out there ready to do it, like you said, Chris, huge. Nice. All right. Hey, let's lighten the mood a little bit. I mean, it's getting a little bit down there. Let's go with another hiking poll here. So, cowboy camping or tent camping?
Oh man, that should be easy. Cowboy camping.
Cowboy camping, coming from Bugs, the guy who doesn't like bugs, who had bugs jumping out of his sleeping bag.
Here goes Doc again, calling me on my BS.
I am shocked. I thought for sure it'd be a tent with bugs.
Yeah,
no, surprising.
There is a positive about the desert right there. We were in the desert for 40 days, I believe. I may have set my tent up one night out of those 40 nights.
Wow.
I think we cowboy camped every single night in the desert. We didn't see rain. Obviously, you're in the desert. It's not going to rain. It's California. But going to sleep under the stars every single night, I think that was one of my favorite parts of the trail.
Yeah, I picked
it.
that question. I picked that question for the hiking poll because there are several scenes of Bugs waking up in the morning, curled up on his sleeping bag on his side, and no tent in sight anywhere. So I had to find out. What about you guys, Chris and Bo? Tent or cowboy camp?
I'd have to say probably tent. I feel most comfortable in the tent, but man, cowboy camping is it has a special feel to it.
Yeah. I think another element is you're so tired at the end of the day, you don't want to set up a tent. You just want to roll out that crap and lay down. And so I would just, even if I knew it wasn't going to rain, I would just be like, nah, screw it. I'm just going to cowboy camp.
Nice. All right. Very good. So the climbing in Yosemite, we get to see Chris and Eich on the side of mountains, on the side of sheer rock faces, doing something that normal backpackers aren't participating in. And we walk through those places and we look up at the climbers in awe. But you guys, set aside your packs. You picked up some climbing gear that you had shipped into there, and you guys are up scrambling on the sides of just sheer rock faces. You are camping up on ledges. There's one particular scene with Chris swinging on a rope like a madman.
Wow.
And I mean, that's just another aspect to this video that kind of caught me off guard and was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was, like I said earlier, something that was really beautiful to merge my two biggest passions right now in life, which is endurance events and rock climbing. And to be able to climb in Yosemite was a dream of mine since I was a kid. And I remember when I finished the JMT in Yosemite, just staring up at these huge peaks and sitting at the base of the Nose and El Cap and just being like, man, I make a pact to you. I'm going to climb you one day. And so it was beautiful. Eich and I were realizing that Eich was going to get injured, and I think he hitched out to Lone Peak, ended up hitching to Independence, where he was able to ship some climbing gear out to Yosemite. And then I met him. I went over for Sarge, met him in Independence, and then we pulled an absolutely hilarious hitchhike into Yosemite. I wish I had more time to get into that in the video, because that was one of my favorite stories on trail. But we got there just in time, snagged the gear, and just had the time of our lives there. I mean, it's one of my favorite memories that I have, is just sending as hard as we could, climbing as many things as we could. sleeping up on ledges, trying to figure out where to camp and getting kicked out of campsites. So we'd try somewhere else to sleep. And like, because we really didn't know how long hike was going to take to heal. So we were ready to post up there for a while. Thankfully, we were able to run into some climbers that worked there in Yosemite, and they offered us a place in their tents in this employee tent city called Huff, and just made some super awesome friends there, and kind of had that as a base camp and started climbing bigger things. And then on the 4th of July, we were able to do a route that we had our eyes set on for a long time. And man, it was beautiful. It was a big multi-pitch, took us all day and a little bit of the night to climb, and just was really, really incredible. Yeah.
That was Royal Arches in North Dome.
Yep. Yeah. It's right behind the Iwani, right? Ike, it's right over by the Iwani Hotel. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah. Man, absolutely stunning. So definitely we have some unfinished business there in Yosemite. Ike and I, like I said, have had our eyes set on El Cap for a long time. I think Ike actually has some photos of it there behind him.
Yeah, these are on my Yosemite climbing posters here. So gives me inspiration every day when I wake up.
Nice. Have you guys seen the documentary Valley Uprising?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Of course you
watched
have.
that, bro. We actually watched Valley Uprising the first night we got into Yosemite, sleeping up on a ledge. It was so dope. You remember that, bro?
Yeah, we were cuddled up in our sleeping bags and had, our phone held out in front of us watching the documentary. Yeah, that was pretty unreal, being literally just sleeping under the walls where this place was filmed, and where so much history, at least to climbers, has gone down over the past 50, 60 years.
Yeah, I venture to say for our listeners out there who have still not taken advantage of the, pause button on the podcast to watch To Measure a Mile. To Measure a Mile feels like Valley Uprising combined with mile and a half. So make sure you take in this great documentary. A lot of fun. Hey, Chris, was it bittersweet going up to the top of Whitney without these two guys?
Bittersweet does not justify how I felt leaving these guys. I was gutted. All the desert, I was promising them that Rivendell was coming, and this magical world where waterfalls just dump in from every side, and you don't have to carry any water. You just drink straight from the streams, and it's just an absolute heaven. I'm like, guys, keep pushing. It's coming. And then for them both to be injured and taken out of this journey and story right before this paradise, it felt like survivor's guilt. It felt like I was not meant to be going in there by myself. I felt very selfish and guilty, and it was just a really rough time for all three of us, honestly. I mean, we grew as blood brothers during that time. When you go through so much hardships together and you overcome so many obstacles together, you really grow such deep friendships that are manifested right here, right now. Us three are so tight, partially because of what we went through. And so when suddenly, unplanned, you're ripped from each other, then it's extremely rough. So there was a lot of tears that were shed, a lot of painful moments, and also a lot of unknowns for me, because like we said, we started very lonely. I mean, we barely saw anyone throughout the desert. We were isolated and alone most of the time. And so I was thinking that I was probably maybe going to have to do the rest of the trail by myself. And that was terrifying for me. So I walked up to Yosemite like, man, this is going to be rough. Did meet up with another hiker there named Flat Earth, who you briefly saw. Summited Whitney with him, but he had a different plan. So hiked alone for a while, but ran into Grizz in the Sierras, and that was kind of a glimmer of hope for me. I was like, okay, there's other hikers here that I can hike with and connect with. And Grizz actually ended up coming into Yosemite with us, and then hiking with his dad for a bit. So I charged back into the Sierras by myself, and that was probably one of the hardest times of the trail for me, because I spent a few weeks by myself. And I mean, once I got out of the Sierras and stopped running into JMT hikers and I was battling through NorCal by myself, I mean, there'd be times I'd go 5 days without seeing anybody speaking English. I'd go into town to resupply and be like, holy crap, I haven't spoken a word of English for like 5 days. This is crazy. And it really starts to mess with your head. But really praising the Lord, I was able to run into Grizz, and Giggles was another guy, and we started hiking for a while and slowly started to mold this trail family together. By the time we hit the halfway point, I'd met Same and Birdman, and we had formed just a pretty cool bond, and pretty much stayed with them the rest of the trail until finally running into Roadrunner up in Washington. And I was just really blessed with the trail family I was able to find to finish off the trail with, because I don't think I could have done the rest of it alone. It's pretty brutal.
There are a lot of storylines going on in this trip. There's Eich and the girl that could have been, would have been, left behind, and then you've got.
Well,
I'm with her now. Actually, we're back.
Oh, okay, all right. And you've got Bo. You've got Bo with the heartbreak of leaving his sweetheart behind and then coming back and marrying her. And then you've got the two guys having to get off the trail because of injuries and the one continuing on. This is a major motion picture in the making. I would pay money to see this film on the big screen. And so right now I'm going to ask you, Chris, in the major motion picture, who plays Eich? Which actor?
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is Eich. Eich, who plays Bo?
Oh, that's a good question. We were actually talking about this the other day. I actually don't know many actors who.
Put on a spot.
I know. I'm not an actor guy. Who plays? Oh my gosh, the guy from Lord of the Rings, long hair. He's on the journey. They all have long hair, but he has dark hair. Nope, you guys aren't gonna help me out. Okay.
Oh wait,
the Aragorn, right?
Aragorn. Thank you.
Viggo Mortensen plays Bo.
Yeah.
Kind.
Okay. All right. And Bo, who plays Chris?
Reese Witherspoon.
Maybe Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, there we go.
Nice. People have to tune into the YouTube video of this episode now to check and see how accurate those descriptions were. Very good.
Mike doesn't have his long hair anymore. It's a bummer.
I know. I almost didn't recognize him. He was the first to sign in on the Zoom here. And I was like, okay, it says Eich on there, but I don't know.
I don't know.
Where's the hair?
Brad Pitt. Troy.
And then he stuck his tongue out and did the little tongue thing, and I knew it was him.
You were like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's our man.
He's there. All right. Hey, Chris, top 3 views in the Sierras, because like you said, some of the most spectacular scenery anywhere you're going to see.
Yeah, so definitely top of Mount Whitney. Got to throw that in there. I think I mentioned Deer Valley earlier, looking out over right before you start coming up over Muir Pass, going down through the Golden Staircase. Super high one there. There's another one. Oh, Ray Lakes. Got to do Ray Lakes. It's such a classic, and just you got Fin Dome over there on the side, and I mean, it's just so classic and beautiful, and takes your breath away. Yeah.
Yeah, some great locations. We had on a couple who did the John Muir Trail, and the husband wrote a trail memoir about it called Elevation Gain. And in our conversation, it never showed up in his book, I don't think, but in our conversation, he talked about the frustration of 1,000-word pictures, because a picture's worth 1,000 words, but the frustration of 1,000-word pictures when you are located in million-word places.
Whoa, that's powerful.
Yeah,
wow.
I thought it was an excellent description, and kind of jived with my frustration of coming back from these trips and showing pictures to family and friends saying, look at this. And they're like, oh yeah, that's a nice picture. That's nice. You're like, no, you don't understand. It doesn't come across in the picture. So yeah, Sierra is very, very beautiful. All right. So now you have scampered up the length of the state of California. And Chris, you're now in Oregon, and you talk about something that I wasn't too familiar with before your documentary, and that was the Oregon Challenge. Tell us about the Oregon Challenge. What is that?
Yeah, so you try to do the whole state in 12 days. It's pretty brutal. And honestly, I didn't want to do it. By that point, we had been just huffing it so fast, terrified of the snow up in Washington because we had started so late. I just wanted to slow down and take it all in. I was in a paradise. I had found a good trail family. I was over my injuries. Everything was going really smoothly, and we were hiking through just such beauty. And big one, we had gone through some crazy smoke in Northern California, which had just really mentally messed with us because we had no idea how long that was going to last. And so we were in a white choking tunnel of smoke for, gosh, I want to say almost a month. It was brutal. It felt like forever. And everyone was telling us that it was that way all the way to Canada. But by the time we got to Oregon, some of that smoke had started to clear. And once we started hiking through, it was back to just beautiful vistas, stunning views. But we were pretty far behind schedule because I took a lot of time off to go climb in Yosemite and a couple of other things. And so we decided to try this Oregon challenge. And yeah, basically you have to hike. You can't really hike anything under than 36 a day. And you just have to absolutely crank. That includes trips into town for resupplies. So you're having to really judge that. So some days you have to go even a little farther to make up for going back into town to resupply. And it was fun because I am an ultra runner. I love pushing myself, but I just wanted to stop and take all these landscapes in. I wanted to swim in all these rivers we were passing by, and it was sun up to sundown hammering. And we timed our lunch breaks. We'd sit down and be like, all right, we're going to eat for 30 minutes. Just absolutely slam it, get up, keep cranking. And yeah, now I did want to try the 24-hour challenge. Was something that I personally wanted to try as an ultra runner because I had an idea of what I had been able to hike previously in 24 hours. I wanted to see if I could top that. And so
before you reveal that, what was your previous record of 24 hours?
I had done 60 miles in 24 hours just as a personal thing, just by myself. Yeah. And I wanted to see but I didn't do that with a loaded pack. I was just hiking with like a little day pack. So I was really interested to see what I could do having like done all of this, like to this point to where I'm, your legs are really conditioned. And I wanted to see if I could hit that, top that. Anyways, it was just as an ultra runner, something that I wanted to do. So that wasn't, abhorrent to me, but I did not like that we had to go so fast through Oregon. Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong. That's actually where you start thinking about about the title of your film.
Totally.
Right. That's where you start thinking about, okay, what does it mean? What am I doing here? What I'm not taking in the views. I'm just grinding.
Yeah.
Is that why I wanted to come out here? And I think that's kind of how it impacted your thoughts on the title and the eventual resulting title of the film.
Wait, Chris, you can't skirt the question about the Oregon Challenge and how many miles you did in 24 hours.
I was going to come back to that.
Okay, I was just making sure, Doc.
Yeah, day pack, previous 24-hour challenge, 60 miles. Now he's got a fully loaded pack, everything on his back that needs to survive out there. And in 24 hours, you go how many miles?
I was able to do 80 miles, which I was really psyched on. I did not think I was going to be able to. But I had heard some of the previous records from that year. And so I wanted to see if I could maybe top some of those records. And I started 80 miles away, just being like, hey, I'll give it a shot. My trail plan was like, dude, you should give it a shot. See if you can get 80. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Started. And I remember being like, dude, there's no way. This is going to be brutal. But yeah, I got to 8 p.m. I'd done 46 miles and I was like, all right, I think I can do this if I keep this pace. And I took a 10-minute dinner and just kept going, realized, yeah, I could probably do this. I think I just got numb at some point and the night is all a blur, but yeah, sun came up and I had hit 80. I was pretty psyched.
80.54, I believe.
Yeah, 80.54 miles. Yeah, I could have gone a little further, but I was so dead. I was just ready to pack it in.
So Chris, if you can do 80.54 miles in 24 hours, you need to apply to do the Barkley marathons.
I do. I've actually really wanted to do the Barkley. I would love to give that a shot someday. Yeah, it's been definitely a bucket list item.
All right, very good. And then you did some more climbing in Bend, Oregon, did you not? Yeah. Smith Rocks?
Totally. That was another bucket list. Smith Rock is kind of the birthplace of sport climbing. So really started exploring what it looked like to stray away from traditional trad climbing where you're placing gear and pitons and stuff and breaking out onto the face of walls and climbing very technical crimpy lines. And Smith Rock is kind of where, at least in America, that was invented. And there's some just absolute legendary climbs there. And so just to see that was cool. But the people that we stayed with in Bend, they had a full trad and sport rack and they were just like, take it away and we'll drive you there and just have a ball. And so we spent some time climbing there, and that was just such a good reprieve from the grind, because it was also right at the end of the Oregon Challenge, and we knew we were charging into Washington. We were going to try to slow down a little bit and take it in, and it was kind of like the celebration of being able to get done with all that. So definitely excited we were able to fit that into the schedule.
Nice. And then you're on to Washington, and one of the most, I don't know, it films differently. I've heard it described differently, and it really comes across as seeming very epic, is the Goat Rocks Wilderness. I mean, there's some very striking images and video of that section of the trail. It seems like a different place.
Yeah, it was interesting. That's where we hit our first snow. So we actually didn't get some of those iconic scenes where I think you can see like Rainier, I think, from there. Like there's one photo that I was looking for where there's like, it's just stunning. And I couldn't find that. It's on the knife's edge because we were in clouds for most of it. But we got caught in a snowstorm while summiting Old Snowy, is like a little alternate you can take up onto this ridge. And it was crazy. It got so snowy. We were sliding all over the place. We're like, what did we just walk into? We're like, there's no way snow could be starting this early. This is terrible. Like, we just got into Washington. And it definitely lit a fire in us to get going. But thankfully, we were blessed with some good weather after that. But Goat Rocks is incredible. I mean, it's a wild place. There's a section on it called the Knife's Edge where you're just looking down into chasms on either side. And it's radical when we were there because the wind was just shoving the snow like up. It was like, felt very opposite. The snow is just like coming up from below us and like whipping into our hair and stuff. And it was a crazy experience. But after that, we thankfully had some good weather and didn't run into snow until a little later on in the trail. And then we ran into a lot of snow later on.
And he was still rocking the booty shorts, mind you.
That's right. Rocking the booty shorts, man.
As a Kenyan, how do you feel about snow?
Oh, man. I am not stoked on snow. I'm not stoked on the cold, but snow, I didn't really have a lot of experience traveling through snow. I'd seen it like one time in my childhood. I'd climbed Mount Kenya and we had seen snow at the top. But aside from that, I really didn't have much experience with it. And so I definitely had a desire to get to the end before it got pretty brutal.
And I want to go back to something that Eich said earlier when we were talking about the desert. And I asked him about the first 700 miles, and he lit up with glee and talked about the torture of those first 700 miles and thinking, well, at least it's flat, right? Okay, it's hot. There's not a lot of water, but it's flat. And oh, no, it's not. And so this trail, the PCT, is kind of bookended by similar scenarios. I mean, you would think, okay, at least you're near the end, we're almost there. There's going to be relief, but no, it was like freezing cold rain. It was snowstorms. That last, I don't know how many miles that you had to do in those kind of conditions, but it looked absolutely brutal.
Yeah, it was brutal. We were there really late in the season, so we realized we were going to finish in October. And I mean, we were some of the last hikers that they were letting get up to the border there because it was just getting pretty crazy up there in the Northern Cascades. So thankfully, we had a couple of weeks of just euphoric weather, beautiful scenes, and I was able to really kind of capture the majesty of Washington during that time. But yeah, I mean, once we got, within a couple of weeks of Canada, it was snowing on us like crazy. And there wasn't a lot of people before and behind us on the trail. So the trail got pretty difficult to follow, actually. And there was times where we were just walking with our GPS out, trying to figure out where to go and kind of cutting cross country where we saw waypoints. And I mean, it was a lot of just trying to figure out where we had to make it to next. And I would say that was probably the hardest section of trail for me because I mean, my shoes were like zip tied together at that point. They were so destroyed. And so I was wearing 2 pairs of socks, but it's a miracle if I didn't get frostbite on my feet because I just had clumps of snow and ice all over them. And I thankfully had a buddy give me a pair of rain pants because all I had was some tights and my little booty shorts, and I definitely wasn't prepared for that. So, man, the cold was just unlike anything I'd ever experienced. I didn't get as much footage as I wanted to, but there's a couple times where I was able to take my camera out during just these blizzards that would come through, and the wind is just crazy. You can't see the trail, and the snow is blinding you, and it's like you take your glove off to press the button to start filming and my hand was just instantly numb. It was brutal. And we actually had one there was a girl that we met near the end that we started hiking with a little bit, and she was hiking alone, so she started hiking with our group. And that night of one of the blizzards, we got caught up on a pass, and we really didn't have any choice but to pitch a hasty camp at the top of this pass that was just getting covered in snow real fast. And so we all kind of piled in a tent and just kind of huddling together, and she ended up getting bad frostbite on her hands during that night. Thankfully, she was able to get to a hospital in Vancouver where they were able to treat that frostbite, but it could have been really bad. And that was something that I'd never really had a lot of experience with.
Wow, that's scary stuff. And yeah, you're right. You are lucky that you didn't run into a little more of that, because there's one shot where you're scanning the your surroundings, and it's snowing like crazy, and then he pans down his body and he's wearing his booty shorts. So.
Oh my gosh. Chris, Doc, when he was asking you that question, gave you a softball to use the word heinous so many times, and you didn't even use it once.
I'm self-conscious about it now.
A softball.
I gotta say though, Ike gave me the word heinous. I did not start using that until I started hanging out with him.
Ike, you are the inspiration.
Yes, I am. I didn't realize that. I learn something new every day.
Very good. So Chris, the finish, I noticed in the video, you got a little bit emotional, a little teary there at the end.
Yeah.
What goes through your mind at the end of 2,600 miles, knowing that, these feet have taken you from the Mexican border to the Canadian border?
It's very confusing because you want to finish the trail as a personal accomplishment, but you've fallen so in love with the lifestyle that you don't want it to end at all. And that crashing in of emotions really starts to get to you. And you also realize how much you've learned. And I think that's what makes journeys so beautiful. There's so much monotony within the journey that sometimes when you're in the moment, you lose sight of how beautiful the big picture is. And there at the end, it's really this time where you're kind of looking down at this, almost this puzzle that you've put together. And while you're putting the puzzle together, you're so entrenched in the little details that you don't really see the big picture. And there at the end, you get to take that final puzzle piece and you get to stick it in. And then you get this bird's eye view of this beautiful painting of the journey that you just made. And you get to just be in awe of how beautiful it was. And that is such an emotional moment because you realize, A, you've done a dream of yours for a really long time. It's been on my bucket list for a long time and something that I've wanted to do. So you're proud of yourself for accomplishing that. Also, you're very sad because you're going to leave these people that you have created such bonds and relationships with in these very intimate settings, and you don't know when you're going to see them again. And you've also going to leave this lifestyle where you have such a sense of purpose that's guiding you every single day towards the end, towards the finish line. And I think in life, we all want that sense of purpose and we all desire to have these things that we're pushing towards. And the trail really gives you that ultimate sense of purpose because every day you wake up, you know, you've got to get to Canada. That's your goal. You've got this beautiful abstract goal there at the end. And then during those final miles, you realize that goal is going to be no more. I got to go back into the real world, figure out what my goal and what my purpose is. And, it wrecks you there at the end. You have so many conflicting emotions. I think joy, sadness, pain, fear, all these just come crashing in. And it's not until that last mile that you are comfortable with saying, okay, the journey's over, because up until that moment, anything can happen. And for me, seeing it happen firsthand with two of my best friends, both getting injured, every single day I woke up, I was scared that I was going to get injured and that something was going to happen, or the trail was going to be closed by fires again, or I was going to slip and roll my ankle. And you're never safe until the end. And then once you get to the end, you allow yourself to kind of take this sigh of relief, but then you're also very sad about what you're leaving behind. So yeah, it's an emotional moment.
Yeah. And that is all crammed into a moment. I mean, that's a lot to process all at the same time. And so not surprising to see those emotions. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Totally.
When you're out on the trail, you got a lot of time to think. You're inside your head an awful lot. And I think people come to some realizations about themselves. They learn a lot about themselves out on the trail. And I think that's part of the attraction. I think, not saying you guys are damaged, but a lot of people go out on the trail damaged and are trying to process what's going on in their lives. And I'm not insinuating that at all with you guys, but there is a lot of reflective time on the trail. And so, Ike, I want to start with you. What did you learn about yourself on the trail?
Wow, that's a deep question. No, I mean, yeah, you did touch on something there that a lot of people do go out to the trail who are just kind of searching for something, or they've done the 9 to 5 and they say, hey, this isn't what life is all about. There's got to be something more to this. And I think that's really fascinating. But it's when you have to spend that much time in your own thoughts, there's so much you can think about. I heard Chris say this, about his journey. You think about your childhood, you relive your childhood. You can relive your whole life 5 times over, just thinking about things in your brain. And I don't know. I mean that's a hard question. There's so many. I could go a million ways with that question. You know what I'm saying? But I think one big thing for me is something that Chris touched on a few minutes ago. For me, I always need something to be striving towards or looking forward to. Whether that's in a little project at work, or whether that's, a relationship with a girlfriend, or whether that's, your faith in God, or whatever it is. You always need that thing to be continually striving forward and looking forward to, because if you don't have that, things get pretty boring and things get pretty mundane, and you can lose your mind pretty fast, and you start to lose a sense of purpose as to, what the heck am I even doing? So I think that's a huge one. Always having that sense of, hey, why am I here? Why am I waking up today? What's my goal? That's a huge one.
It's awesome, man.
Nice. Bo, how about you? What'd you learn about yourself?
Yeah, it's a big question, but I was thinking about it while Eich was answering it. I'd say like probably maybe three brief things. One is the views don't keep you going. It's really the people that are with you that make the views and the journey and the mundane so worthwhile, because the views are great while they're there, but there's also a lot of suck that happens that you have to get through. If you don't have good people with you, suck's going to suck all the more.
Yeah.
I think that another one is just like, I love the journey. I really desire that there's like endurance kind of journey feelings and experiences. And then the third was, I think I came to terms with that I deeply loved Hannah. I wanted to be with her and really wanted to marry her. So I did.
Very good. Very good. Chris, how about you?
I think the biggest lesson that I learned was that I don't want to be alone in life, and that, similar to what Bo said, the landscapes are stunning and beautiful, but it truly is the community that when I first think about the trail, I think of the faces that made the journey. I think of Bo and Eich and Same and Grizz and Birdman and Roadrunner and all these people that made it such a beautiful experience. I don't think of the days that I was going through an absolute Thomas Kincaid painting in the Sierras. That's still a part of it, but that's not my first thing that I go to. And so I think whenever you're thinking about what the most meaningful part of a journey is, it's important to think about what's the first thing you think of when you think of that experience. And for me, it's the people. And that is just telling about who I am as a person and what I desire in life. And I desire community, and I desire intimacy and closeness with others. And also I desire to share adventures and experiences with others, which can often be difficult, but is important to know that that's what you want to strive through. And also a little nerve-wracking for me now that I think about these next couple adventures that I'm gearing up for, is I'm going to be starting them alone. I'm not going to be starting them with Bo and Eich. And so I'm really hoping that I find people to share these adventures with, and I'm excited for that, to see how that happens. But it's good to know that about myself, that that's going to be something that I'm going to struggle with, so that I know how to better prepare for that. I think I also learned just resilience and confidence in myself a lot more. I went in from a very kind of sheltered perspective on life. I grew up as the son of a missionary family. And then I went to a Christian college. And so I had kind of a very limited perspective on different worldviews. And when I went out on trail, I was exposed to such a variety of different perspectives on things. And while my faith in God did not waver at all, and I still, held firm to that, I was able to see life from so many different perspectives. It showed me how beautiful that is and how I need to carry myself with more respect towards those different perspectives in life. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I'm continually learning how to do, and learning how to love people better in being more understanding of where they're coming from and how they view the world around them, because that's what I feel is one of the deepest ways to connect with another person, is to see things from their perspective. So yeah, millions and millions of lessons, but I would say that those are the top two for me.
Fantastic. The three of you, fantastic insights into the trail and what it can possibly teach us. So guys, you know where we are right now?
We're at the end.
We're getting close. We are at that time of the episode where I ask you for your pro tip insight of the week. I certainly hope that you guys have something to share.
I got something.
Okay. All right, Eich, go ahead. What do you have? Pro tip.
So my pro tip is that I actually carried a film camera on the trail with me. By film camera, I mean like old school 35 millimeter rolls of film, that kind of a film camera. I wish I had it sitting right here, but it was literally a $5 film camera from 1990 that I bought at a thrift shop, a little point and shoot. And so I'm actually like a photographer. I got all the nice gear, this and that. I was like, oh, I could bring this lens and that lens and carry all my cool camera gear. No, went with a $5 point and shoot film camera. And I think that was one of the best decisions. That's actually a lie. It wasn't the best decision I've ever made in my life. I've made a lot of decisions. It was a very good decision. I'm glad I did it.
Did everybody see that? Everybody saw the thought process there. You got the words out. Best decision.
I hope Julia saw that.
I hope. Yeah, Doc is going to say something. He's going to call me.
I was going to say that's right.
You know what? Let me backtrack a little bit. Pull back. Okay.
It was a good decision I made because when you have a camera in your hand, when I have a digital camera in my hand, I take a photo. What's the first thing I do? I pull up the camera. I look at the photo. I'm constantly, oh, did this look good? Did that look good? With the film camera, you don't have that. You take the photo and the memory lasts forever. You don't get to change what it looks like. You don't get to redo it. And that to me was so, so important, because pull out your camera, take a picture, and then keep living in the moment. That was huge. It's funny because I'm talking about this and Chris brought his camera and all this stuff. No knock against that. Also bring a nice camera, but that's my pro tip.
I love that.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. And all of the shots that were in the credits there in the video were Eich's film shots. So do got to give him that plug.
Nice. I love that. I love the fact that you pointed out that you take the picture and you don't get to look at it and mess with it on your iPhone and say, oh, that's not what I want. I want to get something else. Or, it's not, I want to do this. It's point, it's shoot, it's get on with your experience out there. That's excellent. Yeah. That's a great pro tip. All right, Bo, how about you?
Ooh. I'll do a serious one and a not so serious one.
Oh,
the first one I would say is like I said earlier, bring good people with you, or go with good people that inspire you, people that shape you, more of the person that you want to be, and people that you can get along with. That's a wildly important thing. And the second one is, don't bring a pair of Shinzi sunglasses that you found for the sun in the desert.
Yeah,
it gets uncomfortable and doesn't work very well. So
fair enough.
Invest in some good gear.
Eyewear is important. Awesome. That's great. All right, Chris.
Mine's a pretty hotly debated one in the thru hiking community, but I will stand firm on my ground with this. Is I would not send resupply packages out from the beginning of the trip to different places, even if you're just going to do it for the beginning. But a lot of people spend so much time and emotional energy and extra money packaging all these. I understand for the JMT it's a little bit different, but at least for the PCT, for the first 400 miles, I wanted to have all the logistics taken care of sending out these huge packages of food. And I think 0 of them actually made it to their proper location. It just was such a crap show the whole time. And we were like boarding them, and then the food was getting like rotten, and we were just throwing it all away and giving it away to hikers. What I would recommend is just rely on the towns that you're going through, resupply in where you're in like these shops that are inevitably in pretty much all the places that you're going to resupply, and rely on the hiker boxes, especially if you're later in the season. I cannot tell you how many times I resupplied off of a hiker box from food that people just like left there. Now, I'm not saying this works for everyone, but if you want to live on a prayer a little bit, make the journey a little more spicy, then just go by the seat of your pants. And it definitely definitely simplifies the logistics and makes it a little more enjoyable, in my opinion.
All right. A little Bon Jovi reference there, living on a prayer. And I'm going to throw in some Mike Tyson. I think Mike Tyson said that everybody's got a game plan until you get punched in the mouth. And the game plan goes out the window. And I want to talk about it just a little bit, because part of the pleasure of doing these long hikes is planning for them, right? Everybody's doing their research and their planning and logistics and, shipping their food and whatever else. And then you get out there on the trail, and after the first day you realize, oh man, my plan's not going to work, and so you've got to adjust on the fly. I think that's an excellent piece of wisdom right there, Chris. Thank you very much.
Totally. I will say, though, don't do that on the JMT. Definitely figure out, like, send a package to VVR, MTR, do what you got to do. I will say, though, I went balls to the walls and did not. I just depended on a hiker box at MTR. It ended up working out okay for me, but could have been pretty bad.
Yeah, unless your names are Gabe and Kevin and you're fast packing the JMT and you do it in less than 6 days.
Yeah, that's right.
Gabe's wife only gave him a week to do it, so he said, okay, we'll do it in 6 days. All right, so there you have it. That's it. Season 2, episode 15 is in the books. I hope our listeners enjoyed our time with Chris, Bo, and Eich. I want to thank them for joining us this week. Guys, how can our listeners keep up with you on social media, and where can they find updates on your latest adventures?
Well, Instagram's a good one. I know we're all on Instagram, unless Bo got off. I think you're still on it. Instagram's a good one. Oh, sorry.
Eich, what is your Instagram handle?
It is Andrew_Eichenlob. I'm sure Doc will put this in the description somewhere.
Absolutely. Bo, how about you? Are you on Instagram?
I'm not. I'm not so social when it comes to the medias, but
Hannah said no Instagram.
There we go.
No, you can just follow. I'll show up in Chris's every once in a while.
Okay. I mean, you guys do have matching tattoos, so I'm not surprised.
That's right.
There you go.
Match to the hip.
And Chris, how about you?
You can follow me on Instagram, Chris Carter146. I'll be posting updates there of future trips. I'm going to be attempting a through hike of the CDT and the Appalachian Trail this next season. So definitely follow me there. You can always follow me on YouTube as well. Haven't really decided if I'm going to be blogging or vlogging this next through hike, but I'll try to be posting some updates and then hoping to make another documentary of those other trails. So definitely stay tuned for those.
All right. And can we have you back on the pod to talk about those adventures?
Totally. You know what? Maybe you should come out and join me on the CDT for a little bit.
Ooh, wow. I've heard stories about the CDT. Be careful. Mexico. That's all I'm going to say.
That's right.
Ordinarily at this point, I would ask for an adventure media recommendation, but I'm not going to do that in this episode, because the only adventure media recommendation I have for our listeners this week is To Measure a Mile.
Right on.
Make sure that you watch that. All right. That's a wrap from the John Freaking Muir studio. Any shout outs to friends and family, guys?
Shout out to Bo's wife. She's awesome.
She's awesome. She's rad. Yeah.
Way to go, Hannah.
I will have to say there. You were asking a little bit earlier about like if I had any previous filmmaking experience or anything. There was somebody, Ethan Chen here in Chattanooga, who's a good friend of mine, went to college. He helped me a lot with like the sounds and some of the more technical parts of some of the elements that are in the video. So don't want to do this without giving him a shout out. He's my man, and he pretty much helps me with everything technologically. I'd be living under a bridge if it wasn't for him. So shout out to that homie.
What's Doc gonna say about living under a bridge this time?
Thank you for tuning
Doc's like,
in.
oh man, I don't know what to do with that one. I'm just gonna keep barreling through.
I'm rolling. Here we go. Thank you for tuning in. Always remember, the trail is the trail. It doesn't care if you want to go downhill. It doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. It doesn't even care if you have to live under a bridge with a hobo for a few days until the injuries go away. The trail is the trail. Embrace the suck.